Good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope everybody is well, and welcome to IB Future Masters 2022 Y Council Town Hall. Wherever you are, I hope you're comfortable and ready for an exciting hour. I also hope you're warm because I know it's a bit frosty out there. I am your host, Sikhanyiso Mdlalose, otherwise known as Ziggy. And I know you're probably wondering, how did I get Ziggy? Ziggy is Sikhanyiso. Look, it's a story for another day over maybe a hot chocolate or something a bit warmer, a glass of wine, but we'll reserve that for another day. Brief description about myself. I was born in Durban, raised in Cape Town, and now I'm in the streets of the gold, Johannesburg, and been here for about almost 10 years. And in those 10 years, I've been in the industry for also 10 years. I'm part of the Y Council. I'm a group and I'm a member. And I've been in digital since the start. Currently head of digital at iProspect on an exciting brand, ABinBev. And been in the group for about 7 years. But enough about me. I think I've got more exciting guests and speakers to come up forward. So why are we here today? The overall vision of the Y Action Council is to increase under 30s engagement and participation within digital marketing, media, and advertising. The Town Hall presents a wonderful opportunity for young people in the industry to come together, take center stage, and discuss issues and relevant topics. In 2020, we discussed lessons to your younger self. And also last year, we focused on mentorship. So today, we take a different take on things, and we're focusing on showing up as your authentic self, celebrating diversity and inclusion in light of not only it being a youth month, but as well as a Pride month. So today's town hall will be broken up in 2 sessions. We've got a keynote speech followed by a panelists of esteemed guests. Before I introduce our keynote speaker, I just want to set aside some ground rules. I'm sure everybody's familiar with Zoom, so please mute yourself, ensure that you're muted, and also your cameras are off. We know there's been some very awkward vibes in the past 2 years. And also please keep it engaged. We wanted to make sure that it's as engaged as possible. So at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a Q&A button. So please, throughout the session, keep us engaged, ask questions relevant specifically to the topic, or if there's anything directed that you want to speak to the keynote speaker, as well as the panelists. And finally, before we begin, please go on to the IB_SA social pages. Please hashtag IB Future Masters, as well as IB Insights. So to set the tone, let's get the poll up and let's see who is in the room. So the first one, just to get you guys balanced, what part of industry do you represent? So please choose, is it strategy, is it PR, are you coming from media? Welcome media, my media colleagues out there. Is it creative, allies, is it client service, or was it other? Intrigued other, it could be students. Okay, cool. So most we have a nice balance. It seems like strategy and media is taking the top. We have a bit of PR, creative. So I think we've got a really nice balance today, and I'm really excited to get going. So I have the benefit and the privilege to introduce our keynote speaker, Sylvester Chauke, founder and chief architect of DNA Brand Architects. What you'll see when he comes up is you're going to see beautiful accolades behind him. And I'm just going to describe him, just a small portion of what you will see in the back screen. So Sylvester is a disruptor in brand communications as lead of marketing Nando's and MTV Networks Africa. Sylvester Chauke is the CNBC Africa All Africa Young Business Leader of the year 2017, founder and chief of award-winning DNA Brand Architects, winners of the ICCO World's Best PR campaign in 2019, Large PR Agency of the Year in 2021, Adweek Top 100 Fastest Growing Agencies in the World in 2020, member of the Advisory Council for the World Economic Forum Global Shapers, board member of the SA State Theatre, an all-round Madonna fan, something that's definitely not the background, passionate in entrepreneurship and turning the tide of transformation in communications agency landscape in South Africa. And the ultimate professional dream is to see African brands on the Fortune 500 World's Valuable Global Brands list. So until then, we're all pushing and see our pusher. So Sylvester, welcome, and please take it away.
Thank you very much. I have to say, I always find it incredibly exciting to speak to industry, and especially to speak to young future leaders of our industry taking it forward. So I really am glad to be part of this IAB session, and thank you very much for inviting me. I have been given a very short period of time, so I know I have a lot to say, and I have to just jump straight into it because I want to make sure that I use every single second that I've been given. And I actually wanted to start from the very beginning. Because for me, when I was 12 years old, I went for an audition for a TV commercial. And luckily for me, I got the part. And then a few days later, I arrived on set and I couldn't believe my eyes because as a 12-year-old coming from Soweto, all of a sudden I am on the set of this big production. I knew that this was something that I wanted to be part of going into my future. I was hooked by the world of advertising communications since then, and I knew I wanted to go and study that, and I wanted to do that. So obviously, like all of us around this, this call, I went on to study marketing brand communication at University of Johannesburg, and I really fell in love even more with the prospects of a career that was going to be very different, something that I hadn't seen before, and something that I was actually going to be chartering for the first time as a Black South African. And after that, I actually then arrived at FCB with a pizza box. And I went into reception and I said, I'm here to deliver pizza for Wing Wing. And, luckily for me, that worked out because he came down and I pretended that I was going to deliver pizza, but actually I had my CV inside the pizza box. And I had a note inside the pizza box that said, you need to have this, a piece of this talent. And I think that really got me quite excited to be part of this industry. And I must say, since then, I got into FCB. I worked at FCB. FCB showed me and guided me and taught me the foundations of brand communication. I went to Ogilvy. That reignited my passion for creativity and problem solving. And I went to DDB. That chiseled me to shape. And they taught me, and they really inspired my love for solving brand communication problems. So I worked with some of the best agencies in the world. And after that, I went to join Nando's as its national marketing manager, and I looked after the brand on the brand communication side. And that's the place where, for me, Stand Against Bland was born. Building a business, building a brand, while creating very strong connection with consumers and creating talkability was something that I really, really loved. And Nando's gave me that platform to be able to play that much more. After Nando's, I joined MTV Networks Africa as its director of marketing and communication. And I really was quite thrilled to work with such incredible brands on the African continent, but creating stories and a platform for brands to play. And I learned at MTV that if you want to do well in the space, you want to ensure that customers, viewers, listeners, they all love what you do and they tune in. And that's where I really got to cement my style and my vibe of creating communication. And of course, in 2012, I started DNA Brand Architects, now working with some of the most exciting brands on the continent and some of the most exciting young people on the continent as well. Really thrilling to see the transformation and the opportunity within our industry in being able to deliver a different kind of voice for our audience. And of course, we've been working very hard at building a relevant agency that's very reflective of an industry that we want to see. And of course, more broadly, how we create a platform or create the way that industry needs to improve and needs to transform. And of course, we understand firsthand that it's not easy. You know, it's not easy being part of this industry. It is grueling, it is consuming, and it is really incredibly passionate. And as a result, it can be quite heartbreaking in many ways, you know, as well. But that said, it's an exciting time for brands and our industry. And particularly if you look at what's been happening in the last 2 years, there's a lot of opportunity for us as professionals to put our stamp in the work that we are seeing out there. And of course, for all of us working in the space, we do it for the love and for the passion for creative work that move people. It's all about creativity at the end of the day, and creativity that moves brands forward, creativity that moves people forward. And fundamentally, we know that we could never be in this industry if we were mediocre, right? Because it really does require a certain level to fight against mediocrity, the usual, the boring, the mundane, because we have to continue to challenge ourselves and, of course, creating magic and on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, because you know your best work is what you did, you know, now, or it's what you're doing now versus what you did in the past. And that's something that's quite incredible. So we know we all have to be fighting mediocrity in order for us to stand out and be counted as members of this industry. And of course, all of us here understand that our profession is in a constant state of flux. It's changing constantly. And of course, even with that, it's important to learn then how to ride the waves of the challenges that we are facing as professionals in the space. And to do that effectively, we have to get very connected to the industry. And that's why such conversations are incredibly important. There's a balancing act that is required, a balance that serves you as a professional, that serves the agency that you work on or the brand that you work on, and of course the customers. So there's a lot at stake here across the value chain in terms of being able to get something really valuable in each of the segments that we are dealing with. And that said, I've been frustrated about our industry in many ways as well, because it is, yes, an exciting industry. It's an industry of ideas. We're really good at one thing, really, taking the ordinary and delivering it in a magnificent way. And this is one of the things that I love about this industry. And of course, like I said, when I was 12, I knew I want to be in it. So I'm working in a space that I always wanted to be in. And I love this about our industry. We can make the ordinary look extraordinary. And that's really amazing across the value chain. We are so good at this that we even sometimes fool ourselves into believing whatever we want, whether it's fact or fiction. And I have to say that when I look at our industry and, 20 years plus in it, you can see that there's been some movements, but there's also been some frustrations in areas where we're not moving in the right direction. And that's why today I'm hoping that as the future of our industry, we're able to look at what's possible and what it is we can do to try to create a much better industry for us to be part of. And this is exactly where I think the problem is. We believe that the industry is transforming, we're building trust, we're building openness, transparency, shared goals, blah, 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 blah. And I think, yes, there are elements that are good, but I think we also need to look at what are the elements we can improve. And I'm hoping that I can share some of those ideas. We also know that it is a hard industry and it's a hard reality for us to juggle quite a bit of it, of everything that happens in this industry in order to make it work. And over and above the work we have to do in media, in PR, in comms, or whatever, at the center of what we do is also about people, and it's about the engagement and collaboration that's needed in order for us to create great work. We have to juggle what's above the water and what's underneath the water, what's seen and what's not seen. And what I've seen is that where we have the biggest challenge is actually in more of the things that are not seen, those unsaid elements in our agencies that create a problem for us going forward. And perhaps we should stop juggling for a bit and ask ourselves the question, is our industry moving in the right direction? And of course, a sort of like top line answer, you could say yes, you know. But at the same time, I believe that there are areas that we as the future of our industry can really amp up in order for us to deliver a much more inclusive, diverse, and transformed industry, which I believe is what we need in our country. So then I asked myself, what is the problem? And throughout my whole career, both in client side as well as agency side, I have collected a lot of receipts as to why our industry sometimes is slowing down. And whether it was at MTV or Nando's, or DDB, Ogilvy, or FCB, or whatever, you know, we've been peddling the same gobbledygook since then, you know, and I don't believe that we are better because of it. We are regurgitating the same old things. And as a result, we're not challenging ourselves enough to be able to look at new frontiers of new ideas and new areas. And there's a lot of fear. And that's really why I think, as I'm speaking to young people today, is that we need to really look at this and challenge ourselves and be able to acknowledge that we've got to be able to fight this fear of us being able to engage in our companies, in our businesses where we sit. You know, of course, as a Black professional, there is fear. As a woman, there's fear. As a Black woman, there's fear. As a member of the LGBTIQ+ community, there's fear. Because for some of us, it's really not that easy to live in this industry and to be heard and our voices to be amplified. And sometimes we are afraid to say the things that are unnecessary. And that's why we find ourselves constantly fighting for a world that does not honor us. And I think that's really what I want to be able to drive, this idea of authenticity. You know, when I started DNA Brand Architects many years ago, we wanted to be best in class. And because my team and I believe that our industry can change, because we think that it's possible to do that. And of course, in many ways, we've been able to push and challenge ourselves to be better, authentic leaders and to be our authentic selves in driving our business going forward. And I think this is really quite cool, because it really means that it's up to us as individuals to show up in a way that allows for our authenticity and for our best selves to kind of shine. And as an agency founder in chief, I fully understand the real fear amongst agencies and amongst individuals working in agencies, you know, fear that permeates. And I really think we need to challenge this fear and fight against it. And then, of course, I also thought to myself, what are the things that are challenging that we need to think about? And as leaders of the future, as current leaders and as individuals who are playing within this industry, I think that we need to stop walking on eggshells in our boardrooms. We need to stop acting and pretending. We need to be honest in coming out as ourselves and being able to voice out what is key and what is important. So we don't need to be delivering award-winning performances in our agencies. We need to be ourselves in order for us to be really, truly engaged. And of course, we cannot underestimate the serious barriers that we are seeing in this industry, barriers that we see daily. In your own agency, you know this. We are not all having the same glorious experience of the industry. The barriers are real and they are reinforced. And we know that we need to break these barriers and get rid of constructs that kind of hold us back into a space of dishonesty or a space where we cannot be authentic to ourselves. And I think it's important to be realistic about these barriers and actually be able to look at how do we tackle them. And of course, I can hear you say, well, you know, that's how the industry is. And it's hard, you know, it's challenging, and then sometimes it's exhausting. But at the end of the day, we need to be able to look at how we can play our part as leaders in our own areas in being able to manage this transformation or this change. And I don't think I need to be telling this group about what we've experienced in the last couple of years. This systemic issue of how brands and their brand teams manage their communication. And we've seen lots of drama, H&M, Gucci, Clicks, you name it. There's a lot of challenges there with regards to the voice of people being heard clearly in our agencies and our brand teams. And that is an issue because there isn't enough of that transformation. There isn't enough of that diversity and thinking within our teams and within our groups. And we need to be very clear and honest in building that. And we must stop talking and retweeting about this only. we must do something about it. We must be able to isolate those barriers, get a deeper understanding, and kind of make plans to address them, then of course act on them. And I think that I've got some ideas I'd like to share. In your area today, you can make a difference in being able to deliver and foster an environment that really looks into a change within the areas that we are working within. I do think that there's hope. The reason we all invest time and effort to attend engagements like today is because we want to be part of the conversations, part of the change, and we want to create a better world within our industry, a better ecosystem for the communication industry as a whole. And we know that we can do it. And otherwise, if we don't change, we will lose credibility as a body. And I think our body, and our industry will collapse if we don't really shift some of these key areas. And all we have to do is look at where we've been in the last 20 years and looking at what are the opportunities that we can improve on. Because we know that our industry was much more revered, 20 years ago than it is today. And that's also because of the fact that we're not really moving equally. So I have some ideas in the last couple of minutes that I have to kind of align some of those opportunities. Too many people leave their true self in the car when they come to work, because the places that they work don't really nurture and allow them to be themselves. Like I said, if you are a woman, you're seen differently. If you're a Black woman, even worse, if you're a member of the LGBTIQ+ community, you're seen differently. If you're a Black man, you're seen differently. If you're a Black professional, you're seen differently. There's so many things that are quite toxic in our workspaces. I think we need to identify them, but find a voice to be able to express that, so that we ensure that the environments that we're working in are not just beautiful looking offices, but they actually do allow and espouse an area of diversity and inclusion. So let's design spaces that balance what's beautiful, what's visual, and what's emotional, and what's actually at the end of the day, what's not seen. That's going to be quite important for me. We need to also have courage, not just courage behind the keyboard. People can tweet about stuff and write about stuff, but sometimes it's also being able to have courage in the boardroom, courage in the office, to be able to express that that is rude, to express that that is not how Black people see themselves, or we don't always dancing in ads. That's not how we think. There are many different facets to us as an example, or women, or Black women, or whatever. I think the courage, we as leaders, as young people in the future, we need to have the courage to express our truth and looking at how do we try to improve our industry. And I think it's about collective wisdom, because that's where it's at. It's all about that intersection of all the knowledge and the expertise that we have. Because oftentimes we make a big mistake by thinking that it's about the Black silo, or the white silo, or the woman silo, or the Black woman silo, like I've said, or the members of the LGBTIQ+ community, or whatever. It's really about building future-proof teams that adapt to the times that they're in. It's not about shining in silos, but it's about collectively working together in order to showcase a much wider wisdom as a team, as a collective. And I think that's really where sometimes there's that resistance, too many silos in our industry. We need to merge those for betterment of our industry going forward. I think it's also about making sure that we are finding and building good eggs. And I think by this, I mean, we also need to find the best parts of ourselves and expand that more in our organizations, in our own areas. The best parts about ourselves will deliver good outputs. The bad parts about ourselves will deliver bad outputs. And I think there are companies or agencies or brand teams that are known for being plain, challenging to work within, because they just don't listen, or they're not diverse, or they're not inclusive. And I think we need to be able to find within ourselves the ability to build very good eggs. I think that's quite important. I think as young people, assemble an honesty squad. Get people that can talk to you honestly. We need people in our industry that can challenge you. Pay attention to the people who show up with honesty to you, not just people that just sort of like excitedly, amp you up over, what you think already. But it's also about challenging some of those ideas. People that we can disagree with, that we can be able to share our truth with, that we can be able to honestly give feedback about a piece of work without feeling like we will be judged if we disagree. I think that's important. And in your own area, you can do that. You can find people that can be truly honest to you in driving that. And I think in order for us to show up as our authentic self, we need to be able to ensure that we remove dishonesty, because that's killing us. And we need to remember that, yes, we are fighting battles, with the world, systems in our country, lots of issues here, battles that are very easy to lose, because it's much easier to keep doing what is comfortable. And I think for me, standing against bland is just that. It's just about how do we as young people stand up and be counted and be authentic and be honest in how we show up. And if you're a leader in your agency or team, build people, create an environment where people can express themselves and be. And so, of course, get in and push people's growth and see this magic happen, because I think it's important. If you are in middle or lower management in your agency today, I think ask and give honesty in your team, in your direct area of access and influence, because I think that's where we can start making small changes that can become much bigger changes. And in closing, I think we are a legacy of a lot of things going right. If you look at the young people in this, in this group, the future of our industry, even though sometimes it feels like a lot of things go wrong and have gone wrong at this point, as a collective, we need to shake things up and build with authenticity and build with honesty. Because the danger is to one day look up and realize that we've kind of safety netted ourselves into lives or jobs that feel more like cages rather than springboard to fly. And I think we need authenticity, we need honesty, because without it, we could just as well, be working in procurement comparing 3 quotes. But I think what I'm saying is that we join this industry for creativity, we join this industry for authenticity, and I think we can change how we show up so that the industry can become better as well into the future. I thank you for my short allocation of time, but I thought that was important for me. In order for us to build great companies, to build a great industry, we need to be able to ensure that there's authenticity and there's honesty and a freedom to be for people who are different to us, and to build a diverse industry that can be sustained into the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I could listen to you for more, and I think you've opened so much wisdom and insight in what you spoke about. I really loved what you mentioned about fighting mediocrity, the collective wisdom. I think that's such a key insight, and the assembly of honest groups. I wish I had this when I was starting in the industry. I think these are vital words of wisdom, and I think I'm so happy that we are creating spaces like these now for those that are entering the industry, because I think for the like of yourself, Sylvester, myself, we didn't really have this. We didn't really have this in our times, and so I think the purpose of today is to share our knowledge and still build on the conversation, because it hasn't ended. But yeah, thank you so much. Please stick around. Again, guys, please continue within the chat. Please send your wishes. Follow Sylvester if you want him from a business point of view. You can follow the DNA Architects on Google, and you can hire him. I think you'll do a fantastic job. I just want maybe a 5% reference fee, just. But to the next phase of the conversation is we've got a panelist, and just like Sylvester, they've also given me some words to describe them. So if you can just enlighten me just for a couple of minutes as I describe, and we should be proud. I think if, as you hear of what some of these panelists have been going through and gone through in their career, I think it is inspiring for everyone. So the first one up, we've got, oh, actually, before we start, can we go with the second poll? Second poll. So which of these statements best describes showing up as your authentic self to you? I'm not afraid to express myself. I embrace my uniqueness. I live with integrity. I think you can just choose one for now, but I think in the discussion coming up, I definitely foresee a lot more reams. But it'll be interesting just to see what the answer is. So there's a split between I'm not afraid to express myself and I embrace my uniqueness. And I think no answer is incorrect. And I think this really greatly summarizes what Sylvester was speaking in his speech. So I'm glad that everybody's on the same page. And it's not like we had given you any other options. So I'm glad you participated in that. So if I can just welcome my guest, we've got Luzuko. Luzuko is from Luzuko Tena. Luzuko is from Kabeja, born all over Eastern and Garden Roots, raised, award-winning social media director at Mediacom SA. Throughout his career, Luzuko has had the pleasure to work on a range of brands, local and international, in a number of industries. Some of these include Viacom Africa. So we've got another Viacom alumni, KFC Africa, Huawei, the International Olympic Committee, Pernod Ricard, the Coca-Cola Group. An advocate for the development of young talent from underrepresented groups, Luzuko is also the head of IAB's Youth Action Council. Welcome leader, sits on the Manco for the Bureau and is one of the jury chairs for this year's Bookmark Awards and was fortunate enough to be awarded 2021 Bookmark Award for the best contribution and transformation in digital industry. Welcome, welcome Luzuko, glad to have you. Boom, next we've got Lebo Lion. Lebo Lion is an award-winning digital marketer, podcasting pioneer, speaker, author, strategist, influencer whose viral Twitter threads, digital marketing expertise, and courageous conversations, and have led her to being one of the most sought-after speakers and business consultants in South Africa. She has transformed over 1,000 South African startups and SMEs through her global top 100 iTunes podcast charting platform, the Lebo Lion. So please, the Lebo Lion show, so please do check it out, known as the voice of marketing. Lion delivers mindset shifting and empowering content that disrupts the African learning landscape. Welcome, Lebo. Thanks for joining us. We've got Dono White. Dono White has a degree in journalism from the University of Johannesburg, and since then has had worked as a journalist and followed by a decade of dedication to the digital marketing industry. With 8 years experience at VMLY&R, Dono is a strategic planning director whose far-reaching experience has encompassed financial services, alcohol beverages, retail, FMCG, tobacco, and tourism. Dono has been recognized by the IAB as South Africa's strategist in 2017, owing to the range of award-winning work in digital and brand communications. And then last but not least, our keynote speaker, Sylvester Chauke. I mean, if you missed the beginning part, just look at the back of the screen and that already says enough about him. But thank you for very much for joining. That was a mouthful reading everybody's profile, but it just goes to show the wealth of knowledge and years and experience that we have in the room. So let's get the show. Again, to remind everybody, please continue to chat away. If you have any questions, I will bring them up. So please, if you have any questions for any of the panelists, we've got another 15 minutes. So let's maximize it and get as much as you want. So I think what I'm going to start off with to set the tone off the back of Sylvester's beautiful deliberation of what authentic self means to him, I'm going to bring this to Luzuko. What does showing up in your authentic self mean to you?
I was at Ziggy, and thank you very much for that intro. I think for myself in a very, because I could go on forever, but I think in a very sort of compact and short sort of way of answering this question, I think showing up as my authentic self to me is all about being fine with being vulnerable. And when I mention vulnerability, I don't mean sort of pouring out your heart to every single person that you meet. But I think being fine with the fact that because I think authenticity comes in certain instances with being very different to what the status quo is. And naturally, what that entails also is that when you find with being very different to what the status quo entails, a lot of the times you can have a target on your back. So that's what I mean about vulnerability, is the sense that things may be very different for you, and you just have to, I guess, sort of push through them and all of that. So yeah, so in a very short way, showing up as my authentic self is being fine with being vulnerable.
Thank you very much. I'll bring that to you, Lebo. Same question. What does authentic self mean to you?
Thank you for that. I love this question because I've recently published a book called Audacity, right? And it's all about having the courage to be yourself. So I think for a lot of us, we're raised to, we check boxes. You've achieved this in this much time, you've done X, Y, Z. And we never get the time to ask ourselves if that's actually what we want and if that's actually who we are. And that's something that's really important to me, because when I started trying to decide what I wanted to become and what I wanted to do, my parents said to me, you're going to become a chartered accountant. They literally ticked the boxes on my application forms and they were like, you're going to study this thing. And I tried, I really did, but it just wasn't for me. And I had to ask myself, I think in second year, I had to ask myself, is this something that I really want to do? Or am I willing to take the consequences and live with the consequences of changing this option and doing what I feel is authentic to me and true to myself? And in doing that, my entire life changed. And I'm so glad I had the audacity and the courage to say, this is not who I am. I think this is who I am, and I'm willing to invest in it. So I think being your authentic self is having the courage to explore your feelings and express them and share them with the world, your thoughts and your feelings, in a way that you think can make the world a better place, in a way that you think can impact people's lives in a positive way.
Look, the great answer, because I'm interested to find out how the career would have gone had you gone to the chartered accountancy. But look, we've done really great already, so I'm sure your parents are very much proud. Dono, to you, what does that mean to you?
Well, firstly, I'm totally reading Lebo's book, and like, you've got the most amazing voice, so I want to read it in that tone. It's going to be amazing. Coming from a brand background, particularly, they are overtraded terms, right? And I think authenticity is one of those terms that have become overtraded. One of those insights that shouldn't be an insight is that we need to be authentic, as a brand. And it's like, okay, what does that mean? And I think what we've kind of fallen into a pitfall of is looking at this word authenticity and seeing it as expression, right? Which I think is true. That's the outward projection of the word itself. But I think authenticity is really about getting to know yourself, right? So it's a deep sense of self-awareness. And I think Sylvester even said it as well, was talking about fear. So for me, fear can mean one or two things to you. You can choose this, right? It can be, fear can stand for, what have I got it written here? Forget everything and run. So, in that case, you're not going to be authentic to yourself. Or it can be about facing everything and rise. And I think the most important thing that we're not doing in today's day and age is facing ourselves, getting that deep sense of self-awareness. And when we're making decisions, because life is inherently problem solving. I mean, talking to the barriers that Sylvester was talking to our parents even pushing us into university degrees that we didn't want to do. That all takes that courage, but at the end of the day, a roadmap to any route of being authentic for me is about working on yourself and figuring out what your 2 to 3 or even 4 values are that you can decide everything with in life. And I wish somebody had told me that when I was actually a youth. And it's the last year of me being a youth, so thanks for considering me. But I wish somebody had told me that, because it doesn't actually, authenticity doesn't come with age. If somebody can find their values at 21, they've got a rich future ahead of them, compared to somebody that only found it at 34. So, you know, that's the thing, is take that, do that roadmap, and then let those values guide your life wheel and decisions where you put your energy. Because sometimes also, you know, being your authentic self is about walking away from things that is just not worth your time, or, you know, fighting for the right things that really matters to you, if that is what one of your values are. So, you know, I think it's all deeply personal and beneath the skin heart, and it sits in everyone's heart.
No, thanks, Dono. I think Sylvester, I have a question, and off the back of your speech. This is from Sloan. It says, I hope I'm saying the name right, Sloan. Showing up as your authentic self in the workspace takes bravery and confidence. It's especially hard for those of us marginalized. Do you have tips for young people on building their confidence to show up just as you?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's also a reality for many people today, many people in our industry today. And I remember as a young man in the boardroom doing a creative review at FCB back then, and we had a piece of work on the table, and a few of the senior people had felt that this was a really clever idea, and some of us, the younger ones in the group, felt it wasn't. And it was hard, right? Because many times we sit today, I can almost guarantee you, today, yesterday, the day before, you were in the boardroom, you had a different idea or thought around what was being shared. And I think for me, the job at hand is our ability to be able to find a non-threatening way of being able to express our honesty without feeling like we have to, lose ourselves by agreeing to a piece of communication that isn't great because you just feel like your boss agrees with it, or amping up or hyping up the work we are doing as an agency because we belong in the agency, but it's actually maybe not that you don't believe in it. And I think for me, the idea is just being able to practice our ability to express ourselves honestly. So you can say, I see where you're coming from with that. But from my experience as a young man growing up in Soweto, sitting in a taxi is not something that we love. Even though the ad is about, it opens up with two people in a taxi driving somewhere. It's not inspirational to me because it's something that we want to forget about, as young Black kids. But nonetheless, our ability to be able to practice being honest and being able to express ourselves clearly with what we are facing. Because you see that if you look at what's happened with whether it's Clicks or Gucci or H&M or whatever, it's exactly that. Today, in our boardrooms today, there is no authenticity. There's no honesty because it's not being encouraged enough. And as a result, we are always sort of like peddling the same old work. And I think for me, just be patient with yourself there, because obviously it takes quite a bit of time to get to that level of confidence. But ask yourself, did I lie? Did I just agree? Or do I really believe in what is being out there? That's key for me.
No, thank you, Sylvester. Lebo, to you, you've been an entrepreneur similar to Sylvester for a while. How has this...
So can I just please add to what Sylvester said?
Jump in.
You asked about the work environment and how we can be more authentic. And I'd like to challenge us to see the entire world as our work environment as marketers, because we create culture, right? We define how people move, what they think with the brands that we build and the businesses that we build. And because I didn't start out in any corporate or agencies, I came up on my own. The only way I could assert my authority was to talk about the culture and the entire marketing industry at large. And I remember when I started, I was super young, 25, 26, and people would say to me, how dare you criticize what some brand did on Twitter? How do you even have the gall? Where did you work? Which agency do you come from? Who do you think you are? You know? And I remember saying to these people, and they were much older people than me, and I said, listen, I love this industry. I love our profession. And I really believe that what we do is probably one of the most important parts of business and the economy in the 21st century. And if we don't fight for this industry, if we don't show that there are actually great marketers out there and that we don't agree with everything that we see, then we're really going to lose as a society. And Sylvester was saying this in his presentation. So your workspace is not just in the boardroom and at the company that you work in. It's literally the entire world and the entire economy. And you shouldn't be afraid to share your ideas and your opinions about how you would like to see it run, and to share your ideas and opinions about your ideas. I want to see it this way, so these are my ideas of how I think we can change it. And there will be backlash, but there'll also be people who come to you and say, you're brave and you're actually quite smart, come and work with us, or come and share more of your ideas in our companies, you know? So, and I think that's how I've built my career. I'm not a traditional marketer. I don't really push the whole agency thing. I call myself the voice because people ask me to come and speak and share my ideas, because I am so outspoken about what's happening in our industry, because I understand that we are the people who determine the brands that I love 10 years from now, the careers that children choose 10 years from now. Everything that you see, we did it. So we have that social responsibility to make sure we do it well.
I think I want to add into that as well, is that I think in our boardrooms, and I mean like Zoom rooms now, we need to actually normalize the fact that we need diversity in opinions, right? And the language that we actually use to bring that across is that not everybody's wanting to fight, you know. Let's put away our egos. If you're a ECD, creative director, whatever, somebody that is probably a receptionist or an intern may have a different view to you and make it absolutely better. And I think we need to start becoming a lot more open to divergent views and put away our egos at the end of the day, because those egos are also not authentic. Let's just put that out there. So stop the feuds and start the chats. I think that's the most important thing. And trying to understand each other from where they come from, especially like coming from an LGBT point of view. I mean, I've just seen Burger King's shocking ad, you know, as we talked about, with the 2 bottom buns and the 2 top buns, which I thought was quite hilarious. But, you know, again, there was also a bit of somebody didn't stop them and go, right, here's a divergent view. Is this okay? Is this not okay? Somebody's ego was put out there. So let's stop that, and let's just have more frank conversations, and, you know, not feel like we're hurting somebody while we're actually doing that. We're just trying to progress. Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. One last thing also, I think that Sylvester pointed to, is that authenticity is also not about just holding a mirror to society. It's about giving somebody something to aspire to, which is so important, particularly in South Africa, and particularly in this dog show of a world that we're coming up post-COVID, wars, etc., sunflower oil going up.
Just to jump in as well, sorry, Ziggy. I think to add on to all the great stuff that everyone else has said, I think the underlying issue, if I can call it that, with regards to all of our problems, I think from as particular as being someone who's worked also both brand and agency side, is probably how we define culture as an industry. And when I say culture, I mean literally internal organizational culture. I think obviously there's that perception within the ad world that culture is sort of working, having those fights in the boardrooms throughout the week. Then on Friday, we can all have a beer together at the bar. And if we can do that, if an agency has a bar, it's got a great culture. And I think we need to look deeper into that, because I think if we're building it off those things, we'll never address the real things. We'll never have the real conversations that need to have, because the moment someone wants to have a real conversation, then you sort of, for lack of a better term, you're pissing on the parade, because everyone wants to have a good time. And I think once we address that, and once we kind of put our heads together as an industry, I guess, and really define what culture is, then I think we'll be able to see that we are very different within this industry. Not only are we different from a background in terms of socioeconomic standing. But I think also the time now is where people are kind of pivoting from being architects to being designers within the industry. People who don't even have a formal sort of background are coming into the industry. I like to say that some of the best strategists that we have in the country are probably the dudes who sit on the corner, ekasi, just because their entire lives they've had to strategize some way or another. And I think if we can create an industry and an environment that allows for people like that to thrive within it, then we'll be doing a great job. And I think we'll be well on our way to kind of seeing this transformed industry that we speak about so much.
Sylvester, do you want to see your hands up? Do you want to close that?
Yes, I actually wanted to kind of add that, of bring it back to the reality, which is the 9 to 5. In fact, maybe it's not 9 to midnight nowadays. The reality of the work we and the spaces we find ourselves in today with regards to the companies and the space that we work within. And I think why I want to go back there is that, remember, the conversation about authenticity, like Dono was saying, or transformation, whatever, it's not new, right? I mean, since I started in the industry, we've been talking about transformation and and it's been 20 plus years, and I must say it's the same, right? So there's a danger that we can continue to have the conversation and webinar and and books and things about the same subject. But what I'm saying is that Luzuko, in your area, you can help to build more of an authentic culture in your agency. Lebo, in your area, you can build your team to be more authentic. And I think then those little pockets then become incredibly much more solid in driving the change. Because the thing is, we can all agree, we're all smart people here, and we all work in this industry because we love it. We can all agree that there's authenticity, there's issues and transformation and all that. But I think more importantly is what's going to be able to move us forward. Can we be able to build that element of authenticity, whether it is creating an authentic squad or getting in your office, being able to say, here's the authenticity day, or have a space where you can challenge things, or have a room the way in this room, anything goes, anybody's view is important. I think the more we do those kind of things, the more we're going to be able to build a much more engaged society. Otherwise, I can almost guarantee you in the next 10 years at the AIB session, we're going to have a conversation about authenticity, and we're all going to feel exactly the same way. And I think, please, can we just remember that it is really up to us to infiltrate that. And it's not at a philosophical, academic sort of level. It's actually more at a practical level in our own agencies.
I love that. You know what, if I can add anything to that, I think post-COVID, we've got this opportunity to reset our worlds, with how we actually work, where we actually work, all of our values. And I can't actually stress values enough, of personal values, organizational values. And I'm tired of calling them brave now. Like, these are, I'm so over that. It's like, these are values that we need to embrace, stop, reset. And if you miss this opportunity, then you're going to lose out. Like, that's actually the mindset that we need to start having, is that you either jump on the bandwagon and you start moving with the times and not wait another 20 years, or you're going to be redundant at the end of the day. So values, values, values. It's not a company bar. It's about a value of openness. It's a value of, taking away the pool table and inserting more conversations. Those are the things that's going to also create better work at the end of the day. And like Lebo was saying, create the culture we need and want in this country.
No, thank you so much. We at that time, an hour goes by so quickly. So I want to individually thank you, say thanks to Luzuko. Thank you very much, Lebo. Don't forget, guys, Audacity, go get the book. Sylvester, thank you so much. He's also got his book, Stand Against Bland. So please, always time to read. Dono, thank you so much. as well. Yeah, so I just want to say thank you so much to everybody. Just to iterate some of what you just said, we've mentioned vulnerability, explore, expressing, self-awareness, collective wisdom, audacity, values, fighting mediocrity. These are all gems, and again, all of us can be a part of this and we can drive this. We don't have to wait for anybody else to drive this for us. So let's not have this conversation in 5 years' time or 10 years' time. So to wrap it up, I hope and trust this will leave you feeling inspired and motivated to show up as your authentic self. Thank you to the esteemed panelists, as well as the keynote speaker. Thank you to the IAB and the partners for making this possible. A special shout out to the Y Council and the IAB team for the working behind the scenes. And a quick reminder, just to say that we don't just host, but we also action. We will be launching our mentor month, IAB Y Council Mentor Month. So please be on the lookout on the IAB pages where the Y Council will be offering their time and effort to mentor the youth for the next month. So please tell your friends, family members to check it out. And last but not least, thank you for everybody who's joined. It's been great being your host. Enjoy tomorrow and be action. Thank you very much.